It's been roughly a week since the NBA suspended the season, and NBA fans everywhere are sick and tired of the hiatus. While people wonder when the NBA season will continue, an underrated topic is how the NBA will come back after the suspension. Finish the regular season or jump straight to the playoffs. A couple of days ago, Spencer Dinwiddie of the Brooklyn Nets took to Twitter an interesting idea of how the league should come back. A tournament where basically every team has a shot at the title. Ladies and gentlemen, this is MCG and I'm gonna skip the smooth like and subscribe intro, so if you like this video and want more, you know what to do. Dinwiddie is suggesting that the NBA goes straight into the playoffs because if they were to finish the regular season, it will probably go on until around August, thus pushing free agency, the NBA draft, Summer League and just the whole 2020-2021 NBA season back. On the screen I have the playoff format that Spencer Dinwiddie proposed. It's a tournament bracket where all 30 teams get to compete and conferences are irrelevant. To explain, the 4 worst teams record-wise will have to play a best of 3 series between themselves to decide which 2 teams get to play in the first round. So Atlanta will play Golden State and the Timberwolves will play the Cavs. For the sake of this video, I assume that the teams with the highest seed would win. Therefore, the Hawks and the Timberwolves got into the first round. After that preliminary stage, so to say, we move on to the first round. Notice that the Bucks, Lakers, Clippers and Raptors aren't in it. Well, that's because the 4 best teams record-wise will go straight to the second round. This is a reward for being good in the regular season, as it shouldn't be completely neglected. After the first round is done, it's basically the typical playoff format, with the only real difference being that there are no conferences anymore. That means that we could see a Lakers-Clippers matchup in the actual finals. Personally, I think this is the best playoff format because from a team's perspective, nothing really speaks against it. If we were to jump into the regular playoff format after the NBA suspension, some teams could argue that they got robbed of a playoff appearance because they had momentum or just a tough schedule at the start of the season, like the Pelicans for example. In a case like the Pelicans, it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that they would have made the playoffs knocking the Grizzlies off of the 8th seed, because unlike the Pelicans, the Grizzlies have the toughest schedule after the All-Star break. This is where Dinwiddie's playoff format comes in handy, because with it, you're still giving teams like the Pelicans and Trailblazers a playoff appearance without taking any away. With that, both teams will most likely make it to the second round, as the Blazers are probably gonna beat the Magic, and the Pelicans, I believe, have what it takes to win against the Nets. All of a sudden, you then have a Lakers vs Pelicans second round matchup. A matchup all of us want to see, and from a fan's perspective, you can't really say anything against it either. We've been saying that conferences should be irrelevant, especially in the playoffs, for a minute now. Like, just look at the 2018 playoffs. In many people's eyes, the real finals matchup was the Rockets vs Warriors series. However, that was only the conference finals. Instead, we got to witness the Cavs get swept by Golden State in the actual finals. In addition to that, this playoff format gives fans more playoff games to look forward to and watch. And speaking of more playoff games, Spencer Dinwiddie also suggested that the first round of the playoffs should be held in a neutral location, as that would bring in more revenue for the NBA. That means that in the first round there would be no such thing as a home court. I don't know how factually correct the thing is with the revenue and all that stuff, but even if it isn't correct, playing games in a neutral arena would be quite nice and a bit nostalgic, I guess, since, you know, it would remind some players of their college days. However, I do get it when people say that that's unfair, because after all, teams did play in the regular season for home court advantage, and by taking it away, you would in theory be giving the team with the worst record an even chance to win that particular series, since no team has an advantage now. After the first round is done though, everything will proceed as usual, so we'll be back to having home court advantage. Now, having a first round with teams that aren't even supposed to be in the playoffs is beneficial for the actual playoff teams as well, because if you're going straight into the playoffs, can't expect the players to be at the peak of their abilities after they haven't played basketball in 1, 2 or even 3 months. That's just too much to ask for. So the first round is basically there to get players in rhythm, and apart from like 3 or 4 matchups, the good teams won't have a hard time beating their opponents. Nevertheless, there is one major problem with this player format though, and that would be the fact that conferences are relevant. Don't get me wrong, I want conferences to be gone since I feel like they're pointless, but generally speaking they're actually not. It's to reduce travel time or load for the players so that they don't have to fly across the country every 3 days. The first round wouldn't be a problem to have without conferences because it would be held at a neutral location. When it comes to the second round though, it gets a little bit tricky because there you would have home court again, which means much more traveling for the players. For example, let's say the Grizzlies beat the Kings in the first round. They would have to face the Raptors in the second round. This is a series where you have a lot of potential travel time if for some reason the series extends past 5 games. This is the main reason why I think the NBA won't implement this idea of the playoffs. However, if they wanted to change the playoff format, I think they should technically do what Dinwiddie suggested, this time with conferences though. So instead of the first round being a round of 24 teams, it's going to be 12 teams in each conference. The last 2 teams in each conference will again play a best of 3 series to decide who gets to participate in the first round. This is how it will look like. You're basically adding another round to the playoffs, which would also result in more revenue. I think if the NBA really wants to adjust the playoff format, this is how they do it. Although I do still believe that the best player format they could do is the one Spencer Dinwiddie suggested. But I know the travelling might be a bit too much for the players, so it probably won't come to pass since after all, they're the ones that have to play the games. We as fans just want to watch it. The NBA just wants money in that case. But if the players aren't up for it, then probably not going to do it. Changing the playoff format would be refreshing and not such a bad idea though, since apparently Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, is thinking of changing the 2020-2021 regular season, maybe shortening it a bit. Either way, this is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, and while you're at it, also comment down below what you think the NBA should do after the suspension. Also, don't forget to hit that sub button. This was MCG, peace out.